Hi, my name is Beth Hudnut, and I am doing the video case study analysis for the lit review that I've done. My lit review was focusing on how culture impacts or influences personality development. So I've kind of broken it up into stages, beginning in infancy and then continuing into childhood and then adolescence. And I have used two fictional characters to kind of give examples of what this looks like in action. Elizabeth, I'm calling my female who lives in America. She's, more Western culture that's influencing her. And then Lee is a female who lives in China. So she's got a lot of different cultural influences in her life. So beginning in infancy, culture really influences a baby's temperament here. This is what we really look at. And the temperament describes their innate characteristic, behavioral style, or typical pattern of responding to events in the environment. And then we break that down, the environment, into four different groups. So the first one is microsystem, and this is the immediate environment, which includes family and friends, things like that. Second one is mesosystem, which is the combination of two or more microsystems. And most commonly, this is going to be like home and school. The third is exosystem, which is the outside of the child's direct influence. So this is more like a parent's workplace, things like that. And then finally, the macro system is going to describe the larger culture as a whole. This is socioeconomic status, wealth, poverty, ethnicity, things like that. And again, all of these are going to influence even individuals as young as an infant. Now, I chose to really look at the parenting styles at this stage. So for Elizabeth, our American character, I tend to see a lot of attachment parenting, this theory. See it in all the mommy blogs and read about it often. And this attachment parenting theory really emphasizes things like baby wearing, breastfeeding, very against the cry it out method. They're very needs focused. So the infant's needs are going to be met as soon as possible. Another example of this would be elimination communication. This is when the infant is not diapered and the parent has to pick up on the infant's cues before, they use the bathroom. And it just really shows how the parent needs to be really cued into their infant and really know, their behavior. Attachment Parenting International says that the practices of this theory fulfill a child's need for trust, empathy, and affection, and will provide a foundation for a lifetime of healthy relationships. So they really believe that these behaviors and this dynamic that they're creating at this young age is going to set the foundation for years to come. So that is something that we'd see with Elizabeth and this culture. On the other hand, for Lee and her culture, we're going to look at the authoritarian parenting style. Now this, they are going to be doing more of the cry it out method, really focusing on the self-soothe, and then they're going to have a structured routine, no exceptions. They potty train very early on the potty, and then they also teach their children to use chopsticks and kind of feed themselves at a very young age. So it's very self-sufficient even at that very, very young age. Um, so moving on to childhood, this is where culture is really going to be influencing self-concept. Now, self-concept is the perception of oneself as a person with identifiable behavioral patterns and characteristics directed by desires, preferences, attributes, and abilities. So again, we're going to be talking about the environment because it really does still play such a heavy role in the personality development. So on Elizabeth, for our American character here, she is going to be very influenced by the microsystem at this point, which is her family. And again, we're going to be looking at the parenting styles because still this is going to really influence our personality development at this stage. And culture really does influence the parenting styles here. So in America here, the most common accepted, preferred parenting style would be the authoritative parenting style, which is high emotional responsiveness and high demand or expectations. So this style is going to lead to reportedly a happy, capable, successful child. On the other hand, in China, for our character Lee, she is going to be really influenced by the macro system and a little bit of the exosystem. So here, mostly in her environment, she's going to be learning and picking up on the customs, the values, the laws, the traditions, the morals, and things like that of her culture there. And that type of parenting theory or style here is going to be more authoritarian. It's not authoritative, it's authoritarian. And this is low emotional responsiveness, but high demands. And this parenting style leads to obedient and proficient children, but they tend to report lower levels of happiness, social competence, and self-esteem. So we do kind of see a little bit of a difference there. And then there are two other parenting styles that kind of don't really fit into a particular culture, but I kind of wanted to just cover them here. There is permissive parenting, which is high emotional responsiveness but low demand. And these lead to low happiness, low self-regulation skills, problems with authority, and then they do report to do poorer in school. And then the fourth is the uninvolved parenting style, which is low emotional responsiveness and low demands. Very well uninvolved. And these children, they kind of tend to be lacking in self-control. They have really low self-esteem, and then they reports show that they're less competent than their peers. So that's with childhood. And then finally, the last stage of development here would be adolescence. And this is where culture is really going to influence identity formation. This is the person's self-definition as a separate and distinct individual, including behaviors, beliefs, and attitudes. And culture will, there's many different facets of adolescence or young adulthood that culture will play a role in, but what I really chose to look at here is how culture affects the somewhat difficult transition from childhood to young adulthood. So for Elizabeth, our American character here, she might be holding a part-time job, like she'll be going to school full-time, and she might have a part-time job. She probably won't have a clearly defined plan for her future, so she might still be considering whether she wants to go to college or go straight to work. She probably doesn't really have a concrete sense of what she wants, what career path she wants to pursue. So the key here is that Western society in America, they don't really, they give their young adults more freedom to choose. They leave their future up to them. And, like I think a lot of parents will kind of try to guide their child. Ultimately, we say it's up to them. It's their choice. So, this leads to a more individualistic mentality, and it teaches the child to be more self-sufficient. However, reports do show that young adults are more stressed when thinking about their future, and some would argue that this could be due to the amount of freedom Western cultures give to their young adults in terms of their decision making. So on the other hand, for Lee, our Chinese character, she lives in a non-Western society where roles are more clearly defined and choices are more limited. So their culture there is more of a collectivist focus, and they are more family-centered. So Lee is probably going to be expected to work in her family's business. This has been kind of predetermined for her. And there's going to be no real importance placed on her furthering her education. So the stress does come off the table because she is going to be aware of her future. Whereas opposed to Elizabeth, she's going to be more stressed trying to figure out what she wants to do with the rest of her life. So that's kind of how we see a difference in depending on the culture, and that is definitely going to influence personality development. We see independence versus the collectivism, the individualism and collectivism, and that's really going to push them along for the rest of their adulthood. So overall, looking at Elizabeth and Lee, we can see how culture affects each developmental stage. So again, in infancy, it impacts the temperament. During childhood, it influences the development of their self-concept. And then during adolescence, culture will influence the identity formation. And then we can also see how culture influences parenting styles, which then in turn influences a child's personality development. So I hope this has been informative, and I thank you for your time.